Hello, children. Gather round the fireplace for a story. Once upon a time, there was a man, and that man wrote a book, an ironic book about racial inequality in the black voice of America. And that ironic book became very popular, even though the man believed in a very different world and hope for the black community. Without further ado, my co-host and I, two very white men, will discuss the Academy Award nominee, American Fiction.
Is Popcorn for Breakfast, presented by St. Louis Area Smoothie Kings. Now, here are your hosts, Cam and Kirk.
Well, welcome, everyone. You've selected Popcorn for Breakfast for your listening enjoyment. This is Cam, your co-host.
What up?
He's fantastic. You really got to get to know him.
Thank you.
Hopefully you have in these almost 300 episodes.
Is it that many?
It's almost there.
Yeah. Wow.
Almost.
We're gonna go past it, and we're not even gonna realize it.
Not until we hit like 1,000, because we'll be on such a roll.
That's right.
My name is Kirk, your other co-host, and today we are reviewing the Academy Award nominee for Best Picture and other things, American Fiction.
That's the first time we got to say that. The Academy Award nominee for Best Picture or for anything, because now the nominees are fresh.
You're right, because we've reviewed already so many of the nominees.
Yes.
Probably like 7 out of 10, probably.
Oppenheimer, I don't know. Do we want to do this?
Do the math right now, right?
Oppenheimer, Barbie. I think is that it? We didn't do Killers.
And
we
here's
didn't
American
do the
Fiction.
Holdovers. We're doing American Fiction. I think your number is way low.
That was just the opposite. I said 7 out of 10. This will be 3 out of 10. Films of Best Picture nominees. So we're really firing on all cylinders.
Yes, we are.
But you can always follow us on all the social medias to hear random thoughts, random tidbits on the Facebook, the Twitter, or the X, the Instagram, the Letterboxd, the Discord, and you can hear our genuine, authentic thoughts. Even here, we have genuine, authentic thoughts that we'd like to share with you. So without further ado, let's chat about it.
Let's do it. I got a lot to say about this film. I'm ready. Unfortunately, if memory serves, and I hate this, I can't even say it. I'm so dismayed by it. I believe you have to go first.
I do
get to go first.
Have to go first, so I will take the dismay here. Let's kick it off with, and the Oscar goes to Mr. Jeffrey Wright.
You dirty, dirty dog.
I love it when you say that. I don't know. It's just very hilarious to me. There's just must be just the tone in your voice, how you say it.
It's because you know it's coming every time.
It is true. It is true. Mr. Jeffrey Wright, you've seen him in thousands of different films and TV shows. I'm sure that number is exaggerated. You've seen him in Casino Royale with Daniel Craig. You've seen him in The Batman from Matt Reeves. The French Dispatch. And of course, American Fiction. Probably his greatest work. I think he's the unsung hero, one of the unsung heroes of supporting actors, and he's stepping out just in full form into this incredible role, as if it was written for him. This is based off of a book written, I think, in 2001. If
the
Google
book
serves
is called Erasure by Percival Everett.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Well done. And he's just perfect. There's not a moment where you can predict what he is going to do next, which I love that, because that means the actor is as real as we are. Because at any moment, you could just do something totally out of character or summon a mannerism that an audience has never seen. But this man, the man that Monk, the man that Jeffrey Wright is portraying, has done his entire life. So we all have these weird quirks and tics and voices that mean something, and life experiences that the actor pours into the character. And I think Jeffrey Wright does it at an expert level. I loved every beat of his performance.
I would have loved to be in your shoes and have the opportunity to select him. So well done. He's so good. And to your point, I mean, you're exactly right. The unsung heroes of supporting actors. I mean, he's got range galore. He's been typecast for a number of years and still is from time to time, but he really does have a full toolkit of different tricks and abilities, and his performance in this movie is unbelievable. I'm so glad that he got nominated for Best Actor in a Leading Role for the Academy Awards, because I think he's just so deserving. And it's funny. The book was written in 2001. The movie was made in 2023, and he is the perfect actor for the role. It's funny how that sometimes happens, where it's like someone comes along who happens to be the perfect person. And I wonder when Cord Jefferson was making this film, if that was part of the reason, if it was like, it's Jeffrey Wright, it's got to be, was that the muse for this choosing to adapt this work now. So I love that. So since I can't choose Jeffrey Wright, even though I really would have liked to, I'm going to give my Oscar to Sterling K. Brown, who is also an Academy Award nominee for this film. He plays Cliff Ellison, who is Thelonious Ellison, the main character, Jeffrey Wright, also known as Monk. Cliff is his brother, and that's what's interesting when you read about this film or you go into this film. What you'll find is kind of like the high concept description of this movie, and we're spoiler free, so that's really all that we'll share about it too, which is that it's a story about a writer who is African American, who's having a hard time getting traction later in his career with some of his works. And the reason is because the publishers are saying they want a novel that is blacker, to kind of crudely put it. And he, to kind of fight that, writes a joke book that is what he thinks people want, and it's like massively successful. So that's what you'll read about. But then what you don't hear about is this other thing that's going on, which is in Monk's family. There's this whole other element of this story about Monk's family and all the different things that they're going through, and all the different very real kind of elements of their experience that everybody deals with it in their families, with death and marriage, divorce, affairs, what have you, relationships. Families are messy. And Cliff is sort of the embodiment of that, and what happens with your family when you get older and you have to kind of work through some things. And Sterling K. Brown doesn't get a ton of... First of all, he's not introduced until a decent bit into this movie. But what I really love about his performance is something really cool that can happen sometimes is he gets described a few times, just in passing. They say this about Cliff or that about Cliff or whatever. Have you heard from your brother? Blah, 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 whatever. You don't see him. All of a sudden, Sterling K. Brown is on the screen and you're like, that's him. Because he acts it so well that you're like, all those descriptions people were saying, this is that guy. And he does such a phenomenal job throughout this movie. He's got a really interesting, complex, messy kind of character whose life is crazy. And the relationship between him and Jeffrey Wright is not clean or perfect or picturesque in any way, but they are doing life together because they're brothers. And so I just really loved it. And Sterling K. Brown is perfect for this kind of role. He is so talented, St. Louis native from our stomping grounds, so got to give a shout out. And this role is amazing for him. I thought he was phenomenal and funny and all of the things that Sterling K. Brown always is, which is just like, you can't take your eyes off of him when he's on the screen, and I just have to give him a shout out. I thought he was phenomenal.
That is everything I was going to say, because I was going to pick him for my scene stealer.
Yeah, I had to steal him. I had to.
And everything is so accurate there. The only thing you left out is that he has the body chiseled like
my gosh,
Adonis.
I was like, did they trick you? Did they say that you've been cast in a Marvel movie? And
this is the next 300 movie, 301.
Seriously, it's crazy.
I mean, when he opened up on the TV series, big hit, obviously, This Is Us, when it first came out, he's running on a treadmill, and you're like, that's not a real person. It's just absolutely incredible. Of course, he probably got his physique when he was in Army Wives, the 108 episode run of that series, where he had to play, an army man and had to be physically fit at all times.
Or Black Panther, maybe.
Or Black Panther.
So he was in a Marvel movie.
He's been just, I think he was born with an 8-pack of abs. And
it's ridiculous.
Perfect pectoral muscles. Not that I've been like studying his body when his shirt is off.
Kirk.
It's so impressive, and I'm so jealous. That's all I got to say.
Yep.
Next one up, Scene Stealer. I got to go into the cast list here, oh my goodness, and find someone who's worthy of this award, I think it has to go to Miss Tracy Ellis Ross.
Yep.
I don't know of any other actor who can just come on screen and just kind of be herself that I don't have any problem with that. I've seen her in just a couple of things. I've seen her present just a tad bit, but I just think that I want to be her best friend. And it's like when you see someone so comfortable like that on screen, you know that they just have like a pure soul because they don't have to put forth any like deep effort to convince you that they are the character that they're playing. They are just there and they are present and they are living through that lens of the camera. It's so impressive, and it's really hard to articulate into words past that. But what Tracy Ellis Ross does is she just comes in, and you just are magnetized to her. That's all. I mean, it's that simple. There's no one else that caught my eye as much as her past Jeffrey Wright and Sterling K. Brown.
Yeah, there's a scene. So she plays Monk's sister, Lisa, and he kind of alludes to early in the film, like, oh, I got to go see the family, and it feels like it's probably been a while and things like that. And his sister, he goes to see her at work, and then they drive home together. And the banter in the car is so real and so genuine. I just couldn't believe their on-screen chemistry was unbelievable. I could rewatch that scene over and over again because it just, if you've seen adult sibling relationships, I mean, that's it. And they're kind of...
Oh, yeah, and they jump from, just like you do with your sibling, you jump from topic to topic with no segue or transition, and it just makes sense.
Yeah, it's so natural. So that's a great highlight. I'm glad because I get to highlight somebody who I tend to always be drawn towards anytime this person is in a film. So for my scene stealer, I'm giving it to Miss Issa Rae, who I just think is one of the great rising talents that is in Hollywood right now. I think she's got a ton of skills. She takes everything head on in her performances. She's bold. She's fearless. She plays a really interesting character in this movie called Centaura Golden, who is sort of like a Newman type character for any Seinfeld fans out there to Monk. She's an author. She's sort of a rival of sorts and just represents everything that he hates. And she is so just magnetic throughout this whole performance. Whenever she's, you have to you're viewing everything through Monk's lens. So you see things the way that he sees it. Mm-hmm. And she knows that whenever she's performing, and she knows based on where you're at, how you're feeling about her, and she plays that up, whenever you're supposed to be kind of annoyed with her, whenever you're supposed to be kind of confused with her, she's understands where it's at in the story and what the role is and just fits it so perfectly. The sort of like big thematic, I would call it, not the climax of the film, but like the thematic climax of the film, like where it kind of comes to a head. She's heavily involved in it, and there's this kind of very pivotal scene that happens, and it's just her and Jeffrey Wright having dialogue, and it's awesome. Mm-hmm. It's just like two really good actors just doing their thing, and it's really impressive, really well written also, I think, and I think she was awesome. Issa Rae is a force, an absolute force to be reckoned with in acting.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Beautiful. Excellent choice. The next thing we'll talk about is our showstopper, something that stops us in our track, Cam, really makes us ponder the thesis of the film, possibly, or makes us rethink our lives. Sometimes it's both. Sometimes it's both. This one comes down to very clearly, very easily, we've already said it several times, the authenticity of this film, the authenticity feel for these characters. I mean, to put it so clearly for you, so often, if you've ever seen a play, specifically a high school play, where a character has to come in, an actor comes in and has to sit down at a table, they do it with such strange brevity. They come in and they stomp through and they kind of wiggle their way into the chair but without moving the chair as if they've never sat in a chair in their lives. In this movie, when we see Jeffrey Wright sit down for dinner with his sister, it's like, it sounds silly, but as someone who studies acting, when you see him sit down, it's like, oh, that was so real. He moved it like it was a real chair. And there are moments throughout the entire thing where like, oh my gosh, it's as if we're watching a documentary or someone who just, the Truman Show, just someone who has cameras on them all the time. Just, it's so genuine. Every movement, nothing seems forced from any actor in the entire cast. So it's a big accomplishment from the director's point of view to be able to, in the casting director, to be able to pick the correct people to mesh well, and then to tell them, don't overdo it, just be as genuine as possible. So everything just was so authentic and so genuine. You cannot look away from this film from that aspect of it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it feels very like for my showstopper, I almost went with the cast, like the ensemble, because the way they all gel together is so unbelievably natural. Every interaction feels like it could be a real interaction, and that's obviously a testament to the writing, particularly the dialogue. We talk about how hard it is to write dialogue, and you see it done horribly often, even in quote-unquote good films. It happens. It's hard to do. This movie does a really good job of it. But I'm going to go in a little bit different direction. It's related a little bit to what you're kind of talking about, the genuineness, the authenticity of the film. Mine is the tone. My showstopper is the tone of the film. This is a dark comedy, satire type of film. And that's a balancing act. You really got to go the exact right speed for your audience. There's a lot of balance in trusting the audience. There's a lot of balance in not overplaying your hand and understanding where it's at. Not only that, but it's an adaptation of a book. And it can be really difficult to adapt a novel to the screen, especially one like this. That's not like this isn't an action-packed, this isn't your dystopian sci-fi novel. I mean, this is a real American novel. It's just like a genuine fictional story and something that doesn't have a bunch of gimmicks to carry it through. Like, this is supposed to be about real life. And so there's a lot of forces at play to where the tone of this could get really out of whack and they could really mess it up. But for me, it's like pitch perfect throughout in terms of tone. I think the comedy is sharp. It's witty. It hits you at unexpected times. There's some really funny moments where they know when to use comedy in the right way. And in terms of the handling of the theming, which, first of all, it's a very unique and sort of like subversive theme that I didn't expect. And I was like, wow, this is interesting. I never really thought about this before. And they handle it really well and just deliver the material in a really thoughtful way. So the writers, Cord Jefferson is the director and writer of the film, but also adapted it from this work by Percival Everett. And I think that Cord Jefferson just totally understood why he was making this film and how it had to sound and how it had to speak to what's happening today for a book that was, like you said, written in 2001. So I just think the tone, such a balancing act. I think this is Cord Jefferson's first feature film, if I remember correctly. And it's just done so well. It's really remarkable.
Beautiful. My next conversation with you, Cam, has to do with the director's shoes.
Yeah.
So I'm going to slip my slippers on. And
Director's slippers.
Director's slippers. I would really like some shoes that say director's shoes on them.
Yeah, man. How have we gone, 3-4 years doing this? We don't have that? We need more.
I think we need matching shoes that say director's shoes. I think there should be like a 30-second interval, almost like Mr. Rogers, where we stand up, we change shoes.
The screen goes,
and we say, now we're ready.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking about him getting ready with putting out singing the
Yes.
song. I love that.
Ours specifically would be just the shoes. Though.
Yeah, I love that.
I feel like we could get a lot of viewership from that,
or we could lose a lot. I mean, the floor is infinity. So
Yes.
I mean, we'll see.
Socks are mandatory. Socks
Yes.
are mandatory.
Yes.
You don't want to see these piggies. My director's shoes. I feel like we were under my personal experience with this movie, that I was under a marketing trick, a marketing spell.
Ooh.
When this trailer came out, I was like, that movie looks very fun. This movie is not fun. There's no dancing. There's no marriage by any means by the end of this film. But actually there is. But what I should, spoiler alert. But what I want to say is that the trailer itself is so deceiving, and it is nothing like what this movie is, which in a way proves its point. If you really sit there and think about it, with the ironic book that our author writes, the publicity he gets from it. However, I didn't want that movie that I saw. I was very upset about the pace of the movie, and I found myself getting very drowsy during this movie. And Cam, I will admit that I fell asleep during this.
Whoa! Asterisk next to your score. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, very much asleep, and I've become a recent snorer.
Oh no!
I don't know if I was snoring in the theater.
I bet you were. I bet you were. You don't just turn it off.
I mean, the theater probably had 8 people in it, myself included.
Yeah.
And I wonder if I was just ruining the experience for them.
Oh no!
For approximately 15 minutes is what I calculated. I think that I was knocked out for. So again, I'm angry about the marketing. I felt like I was duped. And one other thing that I'd like to say is that this is a very bad director's choice. I've seen it done in other movies, is that we actually see Monk and his sister go to dinner immediately getting into town. And then there's like a short cut scene where Monk does something else. I can't remember what it was. Immediately followed by they're eating lunch. So they had a deep, genuine plot, a forward plot moving conversation at dinner. Quick scene, less than 10 seconds. Then they're at lunch having basically the same conversation. It's bad writing. It's bad directing. Those things should not happen. I need to see something more interesting. If I just saw you at dinner and you're now at another table, even though it's lunch, you need to be with a different character. I don't want to see the same thing happen twice.
Yeah, that's a really fair critique. I think there is some of that going on. There's a little bit of monotony or lack of dynamics in between scenes where it's like, what are we doing? We're trying to get from one place to the other, but we don't know exactly how to get there. That understandable.
Mm-hmm.
My director's shoes is somewhat along those lines. It's really, I call it too much filler, not enough killer in this movie, which is that I think it helped me to read about how the novel is structured, because I haven't read it. And I needed to kind of feel that out. And in the novel, there's this interesting dynamic where the book is being written at the same time that you're reading the book. So you're reading this book, but you're also reading the book that he's writing inside of it. Excellent. And that dynamic, I feel like, is sorely missed in this film. There's a lot of stuff going on with the family and things like that, which it is interesting, and it has a purpose in the movie. I just think it's overplayed too much, and it kind of takes some of the wind out of the sails of the overarching story. And if you're going to go that route, I think you got to trim this whole thing down by a good 30 minutes and just make it like a tight 90, because it's about a 2-hour film. So I think there's a little bit of an imbalance going on there. It's all, I mean, you got really good actors, you've got really good dialogue being written, and some really cool stuff going on. But in terms of like the overall story, start to finish, I think what it really could have benefited from is give us more of that core plot, and like make the core plot core and make the secondary plot secondary, you know? And this was too much of like a 50-50 going on, to where it's like, okay, well, isn't the movie really about this? We've got this other stuff which matters. It's sort of a sub-theme, but it's getting too much time for a sub-theme. It's getting too much time for a subplot, and it throws the whole thing kind of out of whack. I still really enjoyed it, but I think that was an interesting choice. And when I was like, I have to know how the novel is structured, because again, novels and films are very different mediums, and
Yes.
it can be really difficult to adapt it. So it didn't surprise me that all that stuff was in the novel, and they probably got played up a ton in the novel because there's tons of pages. But give us more of what the novel did with that book. That would have been really an interesting way to go. And they were doing some creative stuff from a directing standpoint around the book. So I would have liked to see that more.
I love that you did that research because I did not, and I would have because in the film, no spoilers here, but in the film he writes the book and then he walks the publishing path. Right,
The book's written.
it's done. That's when I fell asleep. I saw the beginning.
Okay, makes sense. This is making sense.
He started to write the book, and then I woke up and the book was written. I was like, wait, what? So I think I would have benefited if it would have translated the rest of the film, writing parallel to the events of his
Yes.
life happening. That is more interesting.
Yeah.
So that actually would have, like you said, the mediums are different, but that would have worked well in both scenarios.
They could have even slotted it in throughout, even if we know the book is already published.
Yes.
Like show us bits and pieces of it, give us a montage or something, to just help round out that picture and like make the main thing front of mind.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
Yeah. I feel like the subplots, like you said, did become the main plot, and like they
Yeah, oh,
switched
yeah.
places entirely.
Yeah, and then they have to kind of hard switch back to round it out. So it's a little out of balance. I give some benefit of the doubt because it's like first time director, and that like the source, like the material is really interesting. And so it like kept me interested enough. Obviously not you, but I don't know. We'll get to it in scores, but
Final thoughts and scores on American Fiction. Again, Academy Award nominated for Best Picture, for Best Actor. What else is it nominated for?
best adapted screenplay,
Yes.
best supporting actor,
Yes.
and best original score, actually.
Excellent.
So 5 Academy Award nominations.
That's fantastic. The score is lovely. The
It
score
is,
is lovely.
yeah, really beautiful.
I think it's deserving of all of its awards. I just don't think it's a very good, cohesive movie. I don't think that everything was... nothing really comes together for me in this film. It has all of the magical pieces that should make it good, that should make it strong, and I favor this because the acting performances are so good. If you have bad actors, you have a bad movie, and there's not a bad actor in this film. So that's where it gets a lot of its score for me today. But man, it is a slow watch, and I don't mind a slow movie. I really don't. I could not just really invest in this film because it was too all over the place. And then I think the latter half of this, the latter third, was really interesting. That's when it got really, really good. But I was already trying. I was like, come on, give me something the first 2/3 of the movie. So disappointing is the word that comes to mind best with this for me. And I think it only gets into the Academy because of how well acted it was. People were shocked, as they should be. My score may be shocking to you. 5.7 out of 10 kernels.
Oof. That's a doozy. I'm higher on this film than you. I think for me, it is a little disjointed, as we just talked about, but I think the sum of the parts is still pretty darn good. And there's a lot of really good scenes in here. There's a lot of really good content. I mean, you talked about the authenticity. I really like the tone. It sticks to the landing for me in a pretty significant way, to the point where I'm like, great ending, great finish, great theming, well done. There's definitely some like first time director type stuff going on here. There's definitely some clunkiness with the adapting the novel to the screen. That kind of thing happens, but I do think it does a lot more well than it does poorly. I would have, if I was going to go this way from a creative standpoint and kind of use the main plot as equal in part to the sort of other plot that's unfolding at the same time, I would have shortened it down, like I said. And I do feel like there's a little bit of filler in there. I think just because it's like, what do you cut? They're great actors. There's great stuff in here. And there is, but it's not all necessary for it to bite the way that it needs to. And parts of this really do bite really well and just land. I'm still high. I think I'm a little generous on this one. I'm giving it 8.2 out of 10. I really liked it. I thought it was entertaining. I thought it was funny. And I think it deserves to be nominated for Best Picture, in my opinion. I understand some people being shocked. And yeah, that's where I'm at.
No, missed the mark. I think it's well deserved in all of its other categories except for Best Picture for me. That's just me.
How can you be nominated for adapted screenplay and actor and supporting actor, but not Best Picture?
Oh, it's happened before. I have no evidence to support that, but it's happened before.
I'm sure it has. The Academy's. This is year 96 that they've done it, so that's well played, Kirk. Well played.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, tell us what you think. Did you see American Fiction? Do you want to see it? Did you like it? Did you favor it like Cam? Did you favor it less like me? Did you fall asleep in the theater and disrupt and scar those people with your snores for life? Oh, man. But the popcorn was really good. The popcorn was really good last night. We want to know what you think. Chat with us on Discord. Chat with us on Facebook, on X, on Instagram. Call us on our cell phones, 618-555. Yeah, we want to hear from you. Email us at popcornforbreakfastpodcast@gmail.com. Any way you think that communication can happen, we're here for you, and we want to talk to you. Give us a 5-star rating on anywhere you listen to us on podcasts. I'm really doubling down on everything.
Yeah, just plug it all. Plug it up.
Subscribe us on YouTube.
Yes, definitely that one. YouTube. Yes, it's new. It's a new platform. It's a good one. Trust us.
It's better than YouTube, its predecessor.
Now we're going to get delisted on YouTube because you said that.
You'll never see this episode. You'll never hear it. We thank you all so much. We want to give a big shout out to our executive producer, Ryan Spriggs, and the band Rhetoric, which provides all of our original music. We'll see you at the Oscars, everybody. Talk to you then.
Peace.